What's up, guys? Fooch from Fooch TV here. BTS fans rejoice. Kim Seok-jin, the oldest member of the group, just turned 28 years old today, which means that he would normally have to enlist in the Korean army. However, that was pushed back 2 years by a new law created by the National Assembly, which says that K-pop stars do not have to enlist until the age of 30. Now, you know this channel, Fooch TV, is not about K-pop. We're about social issues. So not only are we going to be talking about this BTS story, what we're going to be talking about is discrimination against genders in Korea. You've already heard many things about discrimination against women, but today we're going to be talking about discrimination towards men. Now that's all coming up right now. Earlier this week on Tuesday, the National Assembly allowed K-pop stars to push back their enrollment in the military until the age of 30. Now, normally South Koreans have to do their mandatory military service by the age of 28. This new law, the BTS law, he still has 2 years before he has to enlist, and who knows what's going to be happening in the next 2 years. Now, for those of you who don't know, South Korea actually has an active draft still going on. The country, remember, is still technically at war with North Korea. Now, originally, men had to serve in the military for about 3 years. However, over the decades, that has been reduced substantially. Now, about 10 to 20 years ago, the amount of time having to be served was approximately 2 years, about 24 to 28 months. However, nowadays, it's only 20 months. However, the thing we have to remember is only men have to do this conscription. Women don't have to do it at all. And obviously, if men have to do something and women don't, that's actually a form of, discrimination. So you always hear about discrimination against women in South Korea. You always hear about all these sex crimes, and that does exist. However, another thing that exists that doesn't get talked about a lot is discrimination towards men. And having to enroll in the military service involuntarily is discrimination. Now, I know this topic has been discussed before, maybe not specifically with Korea, but in a country that has mandatory military conscription, should women have to go? And there are some very good arguments for that. Well, one, it's going to distract the men, especially having them mixed together like that. So they'd have to create a new system separating the two. Two, I've heard arguments saying that if they actually do go to war and the woman gets captured, they'll be raped, which adds another level of psychological warfare to the battlefield. However, one thing I've learned while living in Korea is the conscription is not all related to physical activities. Yes, there are things related to physical activities like artillery or special ops or whatnot, but that does not mean that all positions are. Actually, before having to enlist in the South Korean military, you have to get a physical, and there are 5 levels that you can be ranked by. If you are in the bottom 2 levels, I believe that's level 4 and 5, that means you are physically unfit to serve a physical related job in the military, and therefore you are given another post. Now, that other post can be something related to IT, or it could be something that has nothing to do with the military at all, and it actually has to do with government services. For example, a couple of months ago, I went to the tax office, and the person working there in front at the information desk, who surprisingly spoke English, he was doing his military service there. Now, I'm not sure why he was doing it. He didn't look weak. He looked kind of strong. However, he did mention that he spent most of his time growing up in the U.S., but he said that he was a Korean citizen and working at the tax office was part of his military duty. I also have another friend who's a lawyer. If you do an extra year in the military, so you do about 3 years instead of the 2, you can have a white-collar position in the military. He was acting as a lawyer for the government. Now, I understand the arguments against women joining for, the battlefield or the physical aspects of the military, but if part of the military requirement and part of your military service can be done through these office jobs or being a lawyer or just sitting at an information desk all day, why is that limited to men only? Women can do that. Women can sit in the information desk. You know, there are women lawyers. If the service is not only to protect against an invasion from North Korea, but it's also to help the government out and do your duty, then I see absolutely no reason why the military conscription should be expanded to include women, which would actually decrease the amount of time anyone would spend in the conscription. With twice the population going in there, we could probably get that down to a conscription of just 1 year. That's something to think about. Another thing to think about is due to Korea's declining birth rate, eventually there's not going to be enough people to be in the military conscription, meaning that the country may be at a serious level of threat when it comes to North Korea and other potential enemies. Now, I am for women having to join the military. However, with regard to this BTS story, I'm actually okay with BTS not having to serve the military at all. When you think about it, and I'm not saying this as a BTS fan, BTS has done more for Korea's security than a lot of people just enlisting in the military doing a basic position. Now, what do I mean by that? Thanks to BTS, many people who probably couldn't even point South Korea out on the map are now falling in love with the country as a result of BTS. I know Blackpink and a couple other groups, have caused a similar effect, but it's mostly, BTS. And I'm pissing off any other K-pop group fans out there, whatever, I don't care. So as a result, more and more people are, becoming more knowledgeable about South Korea. South Korea, as BTS releases these tracks that get put into the Billboard Top 100, the number one spot, more and more people are educated about Korea. More and more people are coming to Korea. They like Korea, and that actually increases the relationship that the government of Korea has with governments of other countries, which kind of protects it. So if North Korea does attack, then other countries are more likely to, have a vested interest in Korea because of groups like BTS. Whereas if Korea was a no-name country that nobody really cared about on the international stage, then we would see less countries care about, or at least the citizens of those countries would care less if South Korea was under attack. So I do think that BTS has done a substantial amount for the government and the country in terms of security and international relations. And as a result, I think that should, qualify the group members for doing their military service. And I think that should be waived. My friend brought up that, once we get into this category of starting to waive military services for certain groups, it kind of becomes a question of what qualifies an exemption from the military service. How much do you have to do as a K-pop group to get that exemption? Right now, the only exemption for people from the Korean military related to achievements not related to the military is getting a gold medal in an Olympic sport. Now, he brings up a good point. He said, should smaller K-pop groups also get exempt? Should, very famous people from companies like Samsung, should the son of Samsung get an exemption from the military service? Samsung does a lot to improve the economy, bring money into Korea, which obviously they pay some tax. They do a lot of tax avoidance. That's another issue. They pay some tax, and that tax money goes to the military. Does that mean that he should also be exempt from the military? I don't think so. Those are very valid questions to ask. However, I do think BTS deserves it. I think it's clear that they've done a lot for the country. They've done a lot for the economy. They've done a lot for international relations. Just make them exempt. But I want to hear what you guys have to think. Do you think BTS should be exempt from doing the military? Do you think they should have to go to the military? And also, do you think women should have to participate in the military? I want to hear from you guys. Leave me a comment below, and I'll join in the discussion as well. As always, thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, make sure to hit that like button, that subscribe button, the notification bell. Watch all my videos while listening to BTS. I'll catch you guys later.